Okay, so what is universal design? Universal design goes beyond just what we do on the web. It can be implemented into almost everything outside of the web as well. It is a framework for living and working spaces and products benefiting the widest possible range of people in the widest range of situations without special or separate design. In this particular image, I would have to say that universal design is not being used, considering that this man is not able to get up the steps. Universal design aims to extend standard design principles to include people of all ages and abilities, but remains at a level of generality, so it does not address all specific needs of any particular disability. Simply put, universal design is just good design. The principles of universal design were originally created for architecture and appliances, and not necessarily for the web. The term universal design was coined by a guy named Ronald Mace and a team of architects, product designers, and engineers. Mace spent much of his career at North Carolina State University working toward the idea of designing all products and the built environment to be aesthetic and usable to the greatest extent possible by everybody, regardless of their age, ability, or status in their life. In 1997, a committee of 10 under Mace's leadership wrote the 7 Principles of Universal Design. I will now go over the 7 principles. Principle 1. Equitable use. The design is useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities. It provides the same means of use for all users, identical whenever possible and equivalent when not. It avoids segregating or stigmatizing any users. Provisions for privacy, security, and safety are equally available for all users. And lastly, the design is appealing to all users. Principle number 2. Flexibility in use. The design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. It provides choice in methods of use. It accommodates right or left-handed access and use. It facilitates the user's accuracy and precision, and it provides adaptability to the user's pace. Principle 3. Simple and intuitive use. Use of the design is easy to understand, regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. It eliminates unnecessary complexity. It is consistent with users' expectations and intuition. It accommodates a wide range of literacy and language skills. It arranges information consistent with its importance. It provides effective prompting and feedback during and after task completion. Principle number 4. Perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user, regardless of ambient conditions or the user's sensory abilities. It uses different modes for redundant presentation of essential information. It provides adequate contrast between the essential information and its surroundings. It maximizes legibility of essential information. It differentiates elements in ways that can be described. And lastly, it provides compatibility with a variety of techniques or devices used by people with sensory limitations. Principle 5. Tolerance for error. The design minimizes hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. It arranges elements to minimize hazards and errors. Most use elements most accessible, hazardous elements eliminated, isolated, or shielded. It provides warnings of hazards and errors. It provides fail-safe features. It discourages unconscious action in tasks that require vigilance. Low physical effort. The design can be used efficiently and comfortably and with a minimum of fatigue. It allows the user to maintain a neutral body position. It uses reasonable operating forces. It minimizes repetitive actions, and it minimizes sustained physical effort. Principle 7. Size and space for approach and use. Appropriate size and space is provided for approach, reach, manipulation, and use, regardless of the user's body size, posture, or mobility. It provides a clear line of sight to important elements for any seated or standing users. It makes reaching all components comfortable for any seated or standing user. It accommodates variations in hand and grip size, and it provides adequate space for the use of assistive devices or personal assistants. So, you know those yellow bumps you see on the sidewalks and in train stations and other places? These aren't to keep you from slipping and falling. They're actually used for visually impaired people that use a cane so they can find their direction. You can see in this photo, it's kind of like a path that leads them to the entrance of the train. They can follow this, and they know when to stop. They know right here that if they keep going, they're going to fall into the train tracks. So that's what those are for. There's another photo, and one more. Now that you have a pretty good idea of what universal design means as a broad term, I'm going to cover how it can be used when creating web pages and give examples of ways to make your website more usable for all visitors. The term web accessibility is basically another way of saying universal design for the web. Here are some tips for building accessible websites. Provide alt text for all non-text elements, especially those related to navigation. Provide null values for unimportant graphics such as divider bars. Provide captions or transcripts and descriptions of multimedia used. Provide alternate content for scripts, applets, and plugins to compensate for the potential loss of information. Use the lang attribute for screen readers that support it. Use relative units in CSS. M or percentage is better than using centimeter, point, or pixels. Use ordered lists or number the lists on your web pages. Validate your work either using a validation or correction tool. Provide ways to skip over navigation links and get to the main content of your web pages. Create logical tab order through links. Avoid hyperlinks that are longer than 10 words. Use descriptive links rather than click here to ensure that links make sense out of context. Clearly identify the target of each link. Provide enough contrast between text and background color. Make sure that tables make sense when reading left to right and top to bottom, as this is how screen readers work. Avoid blinking, flickering, or moving elements on your web pages. Provide closed captions for all audio content that contains useful information, or provide transcripts for all audio content. Use high contrast. Having high contrast helps both users with weak vision and users simply standing in sunlight. Information organization. Besides having adequate text contrast and sizing, breaking your information down into easily digestible pieces will make your content more accessible. Specifically, things like using subheadings in a long text post will make speed reading and skimming more effective. Allow for undo. An alternative to prompting users all the time is to give them an undo option, or a way to dig into archives to retrieve old items. Avoid mouse-only interactions. Hiding information behind a mouse-only interaction, like hover or double-click, makes it impossible to access for many users. Devices without pointers are in the majority, which changes the interaction abilities of your users regardless of their personal physical state. Text resizing. Allow for the sizing up and down of text in your layouts. A simple browser or OS text adjustment shouldn't ruin your beautifully crafted application. Here's a website that uses universal design well, couchsurfing.com. It's got a good heading structure, it's clean, and has a simple interface. Labels on most of the form fields. Here's the form. It's easy to navigate using the keyboard. So if I'm just using the keyboard, pretty easy to hop through the web page without a mouse. And lastly, there's a language picker up here at the top, so you're able to change the language. And when you do change the language, the HTML element also changes to reflect the new language. So as you can see up here, language French, I just changed it to French. And here is a site that doesn't necessarily have the best universal design. It's Tesla.com. As far as I can tell, there's no alt text on any of these images. Let's go through some of this. Yeah, I'm not seeing any alt text in any of these images. Trying to navigate through the site using just a keyboard is also pretty difficult. So, if you're up at the top of the page here, start using the keyboard to navigate. You have no idea where you're at. It makes it pretty difficult for anybody to use this if they're not using a mouse. Sorry for keeping you more than 10 minutes. In conclusion, whether you're designing websites or buildings, these universal design principles will help us create better experiences and a better world for everybody.